It's episode 13 of The Boost with Kelly Farrell, founder of designRoom. Let's go. All right. Welcome to episode 13 of The Boost, conversations with people promoting mental health. I'm your host, Steve Turney, and I'm here with Kelly Farrell, the founder of designRoom, which is a behavioral and mental health branding agency. And Kelly's a longtime friend of mine. She's been an amazing supporter through her company and herself through a conference I run. And she's an amazing brand strategist and agency owner. So excited to talk with you today, Kelly. How are you?
I'm great, Steve. A little frazzled, but I'm settling down. Always nervous to do this kind of stuff, but I'm really excited to be here. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I remember the first podcast I did. This is number 13, which I'm very proud of because somebody told me the other day that podcasts typically fizzle out after number 7. So
Oh, really?
episode 7. So here we are on 13 and going strong. But I was so nervous on my first podcast, and I don't quite know why. You don't seem nervous to me, so that's fabulous. But having a frazzled day or week, I know you have a lot going on, a lot of clients and client work. So yeah, I can empathize with that.
Yeah, it's Friday, and it's lovely to know we have a couple days off here, so it's nice.
Yeah, weekend's around the corner. Yeah, so maybe we can turn the tide on your day and have a fun conversation and enjoy it with 2 questions that we'll start out with, and then the conversation that follows. So we always do this. The first question is the virtual hug, which is just a moment of gratitude, and then we'll jump to the shameless plug. So give us your virtual hug. Tell us somebody or something you're thankful for today.
So I'm in the Midwest, and I am very grateful that I love the rain. I live on the lake, and it rained yesterday, and it's really calm today. And I'm just grateful that it's calm out because my windows are open and fresh air is kind of running through my office. And I'm very grateful for that. Kind of calms me down when I'm frazzled. And I didn't used to have an office that faced the lake, so I really do value and appreciate it. I was thinking it wouldn't be any big deal, but honestly, it makes a difference. So it's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Can you put your finger on why that is? Why? I mean, I'm the same way. Like a lake or an ocean, like a body of water, I'm instantly calmed.
I'm a member of EO, which is an entrepreneurial organization. We just did a retreat in March in Michigan, and we brought in some consultants or some storytellers. They helped us write our own stories. And there was one gentleman that was a scientist about bringing people out into and I'm sure you know this from other people you podcast with that do outdoor kind of therapeutical work. And he just went through the whole process of what that actually does to your brain. And I don't know, I believed it. I did. I was like, it does. You don't realize it, but it changes your brain chemistry or the way it calms you down. It's a fact. It's this, so yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but he explained it really eloquently because we were outside in the snow in Michigan, and it was definitely rejuvenating, clearing. And I live in the 4 seasons, so I get all of that. I'm lucky. I think I'm lucky. A lot of people wouldn't be up for it, but I believe that just kind of helps me kind of have this extra way of kind of like resetting, if you will, or re-energizing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't know all the science behind it. I mean, getting out into the sunshine is definitely a boost of serotonin. I mean, that's a great thing for our bodies, and vitamin D and all of that good stuff from the sunshine. And then, yeah, a lot of people talk about grounding, like even getting their feet into the grass and just plugging into maybe, our feet as receptacles, some kind of vitamin rich, nutrient rich experience.
Right.
And then the fresh air, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know all the reasons, but it does seem to just
Mhm.
supercharge or recharge me when I'm feeling in a funk. It's usually
Mhm.
time to either exercise or go for a walk is the thing that's
Mhm.
probably most therapeutic for me, is just get outside for a long, slow walk.
Mhm.
And whatever that is, it just kind of resets the
Mhm.
cadence in my mind and body. So yeah, I'm all for getting outside.
Quick story. I was really hectic day. I'm up on the third floor of this. My office is up on third floor, and I couldn't think, I couldn't focus. I was all over the place, and I had to get something done. So I just ran downstairs, brought my little chair. I have a chair down there, and I just kind of like, okay, settle down. And I was right by the water, and the sun was beating down. We've had some really good weather. And I just recharged myself and kind of got my head on, like refocused, breathed, did my breath work and went back up here. And I was like, okay, I got this. I can do
Hmm.
it. It's really nice to do. And we
Yeah.
had our office in the city for like, I don't know, 20 years. And it just was not, it was not happening in the city. So it's
Yeah.
really nice to have.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's nice.
Mhm.
Yeah. That
Mhm.
reminds me of the Bruce Lee little clip, be like water, where water finds its own level. And so maybe that's a little part of it. We're looking out at the
Yeah.
lake and it's just sort of,
Mhm.
it's level and calm, and it's found its
Mhm.
equilibrium, or it's regressed to kind of its own mean. It finds its
Mhm.
place, and then it's just really
Mhm.
calming. So yeah, yeah. I wish I was on one right now. Be nice.
A little
Well,
long for
let's what.
gratitude.
That's good. That's great. Yeah,
Mhm.
more gratitude the better. But let's jump
Mhm.
to the shameless plug. Tell us about the work you're
Mhm.
doing. Tell us about your company and
Mhm.
yourself and the work you're doing too.
So, Design Room's been around 20 plus years. I'm a graphic designer by trade. My dad was a nut and bolt salesman, and he always encouraged me to, do freelance here and there for his nut and bolt buddies. And eventually, I just decided to try it on my own as a freelancer. And then eventually started hiring people, several years down the road. And I realized we were a generalist firm, and I realized I wasn't going to carry us forward. It wasn't the work we liked doing, being all things to all people. So we did a complete analysis on the work we were doing, the clients we were working with, and the money the revenue we were kind of making, and the profit on that. Walked through that with a consultant and decided to niche in on healthcare at the high level. That means hospitals, device, and all of the services around it. And then we did that for a number of years. And then we ended up niching in even further into healthcare, which is into behavioral health, substance use, community mental health centers, and all of the, like we've done billing company work for people that plug into all the ancillary services that surround that industry.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's how we niched into behavioral health. We keep our studio. I have my whole career kept it really small. I've always brought in web, brought in digital, brought in writer. We don't have a slew of writers on our staff, but we have writers for each client. But we have a really talented creative director that's worked with me. We have two other creative people, one digital person. They're all directors, and we kind of keep it high level and bring in the talent we need.
Yeah.
That when you focus in, did work for the National Association of Addiction Treatment Providers, and that kind of like just launched us into all different kinds of directions as far as this work goes. And when you niche in, you can't stay local. My kids were grown at that point, so I just started traveling, doing conferences, and really connecting with people. Um, and I love working with CEOs that understand the value of a brand and having a differentiator in the market and to help them stand out.
Hmm.
I love it. It's hard work, but it is really fulfilling. In my
Yeah.
career, I was telling my creative director and I were talking the other day. It's like if we look back at our body of work, like, are we super proud or what? You know, like, we're just super proud of our work. So, because we look at a lot of portfolios as we're looking for other talent, and it's like, ooh, I don't know if I would have wanted to go down in that direction or that direction when you see other bodies of work. So, yeah, studio, I've been very, very grateful and appreciative for the clients I've worked with, for, and the talent that has worked at designRoom. They're awesome creatives, really smart people, way smarter than I am. So, yeah, understand strategy, cool. Understand communication. Yeah. So,
go ahead. Understand strategy and what?
Yeah. So, so our designers are smart. They understand our creative talent, creative director, digital design director, and, a designer. We have a crew of people. They understand that it's not just making it look cool. It's about what is going to stand out for the organization, whether it's the word, whether it's the color, whether it's the design, whether it's the image, whether it's the kind of like, how are we going to get them to stand out? The format, digital, traditional, all of the different ways to think about things for our clients.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned the phrase high level, and you could definitely teach the master's course on branding. But maybe we stair step it up from sort of the 101, because it is a funny word, like brand and branding, and it has some connotation. And I would love to hear your own definition of brand and how you think about that word. Like, what's the sphere around that word, and how do you define it for clients?
So our tagline is, we help organizations who help people build healthy brands. So we look at it through a little specific lens, right? We want your inside perception, because we believe in our heart that everyone has a differentiator. Everyone. It doesn't matter if you're doing the same thing in 2 towns over. So we believe that your inside culture, meaning your people, your clients, your services that you provide, your location, kind of like any specialty staff that you have on site, any specialty products or services that you're doing. If you look at, your board member, everybody, you look at your whole inside culture, all of the pieces, and assess it and decide what are you going to put a stake in the ground around? What's your differentiator? What's going to help you stand out? And then we take that and make it match on the outside, on your outside perception. So your inside culture needs to match your outside perception, and that is work. So that's why we call it a value. It's an investment, because once you get that right, aspirationally for today, because we look at strategic plan, we look at your org chart, we talk to you about what aspirationally you want to feel like, be like, talk like in the future. And we believe that your inside culture needs to match your outside perception. Yes, at the end of the day, we do logos, we do taglines, we do websites, because we believe also that branding touches everything in your organization, everything. We find that when the CEOs are on board 100% and they're involved, and it's a time commitment for them, that comes through, and if we can work with that information we get with those work sessions, we can pull it outside and make it a visual connection to the brand. So I don't know if I answered your question. Let's see. So inside culture needs to match outside perception around a differentiator, or what makes you stand out in the market. And then your brand touches everything. And that's how we build healthy brands for our clients. So if they want us to come in and just do a design, that's not really a fit for us. We're going to dig deep. We're going to do the hard work. We're going to drag you through a little bit of kind of like messiness for sure, and sort some things out. Look at who your referrals are. Your referrals are also part of the mix as well. That's your inside culture. And kind of pull all that, look at all the patterns and pull all of it through to one clear, compelling, concise message for the outside, both visually and verbally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. And I'm glad you mentioned the CEO, which I mean, more often than not is the head of the,
Mhm.
company.
Mhm.
Figuratively speaking, and there's a metaphor there, for mental health. And I mean, so often the culture flows down from
Mhm.
whoever is at the top running it. So,
Mhm.
what are your what do you love to see? You mentioned some things like engagement, willing to invest the time, do the work,
Mhm.
probably believe in this concept of branding
Mhm.
to begin with. But what are some of the things you look for, and or what's a red flag or two where you're like, oh, this is just a non-starter, my friend, we we need to do some work
Yeah.
before we can get to the brand work?
So I guess these are things I look at high level instantly. It's getting a little harder to because the CEOs are a little bit they're they're just post COVID. They're a little tired, but
Hmm.
this is what we look for. Our they're usually enlightened. Our clients are enlightened. What I
Hmm.
mean by that is they know they need it, and they might even have an inside team, but the inside team is doing everything. Now they have to do all things social, all things digital. We're at a sixth grade level. So everything has to be simplified. Then we've got to have multi-language, everything then we have to have everything has to be accessible or ADA compliant,
Yeah.
so there's the inside teams are working really hard. And then to be an expert at things, it's hard. So they understand they need it. They might have a team, but they want to support them. Sometimes we're seen as kind of a threat, but we're really not. We're there to help them move to the next level. Not the marketing team, but give them some tools to do that. They're already really fine professionals. I'm just working with them. Um, we also look for so are they going through some major change of any kind?
Mm.
Like um, it's any change. Are they acquiring someone? Are they building? They're going to bolt on a new product offering? Are they going to like really up their game clinically? Are they changing a process that is really significant to the organization? So we look for some kind of change that's going on. So those are real, and the CEO has time, and we have some money. They don't need a ton of money, but they need to have enough to have in their budget that's a set aside that they can invest in this and it not burden their overall plan budget for the year. So those are kind of the things that I just check in and see if I can identify any of those things when I'm initially talking to individuals. Um, so so those are some things that if those are all there, then we can have some really, really good conversations, and I could show them examples about assessment and what that could lead to
Hmm.
if they are interested in that.
Yeah.
Red flags are if they don't have any time. Time is really valuable to these individuals. They're trying to keep their organizations afloat and keep their staff happy and engaged. So there's a lot going on. So a red flag is that I can't get everyone in the same room at the same time to have a really good conversation. Like that is a red flag to me, so there's not too many red flags. Um, like that's kind of a big one is around time and
Hmm.
zero money to
Yeah.
invest.
Yeah.
You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah, they've got to have
So,
some money. Ideally,
mhm,
they're at this moment of change or inflection
mhm,
where they're
mhm,
moving from one thing to another. They're launching a new
mhm,
subsidiary or new product line or
mhm,
something like that.
mhm,
And
mhm,
the enlightenment bit, that's I've never heard it
mhm,
described that way
mhm.
before. And I love that because
Oh,
it's
good.
almost impossible to convince somebody who doesn't know they even need
Mhm,
convincing or want
mhm,
to be open to the
mhm,
prospect of being convinced. So
mhm,
yeah, to maybe move on in
mhm,
certain instances where you're just running into the brick wall. I mean, of course, you can put your best foot forward with an argument to, try
mhm,
to give them the information they need to make a good decision about why their brand might need a refresh or an overhaul.
mhm.
But at the end of the day, yeah, work with people who are ready for change. Yeah.
Yeah. I also look for their mission, vision, and values. Like
Hmm.
if that's baked, if they have that baked, and just check and see if they're living it. There's no real way to check that honestly, but um, just kind of understand, in assessment time, sometimes we'll clean up the values because they're all over the place if we're allowed.
Hmm.
But if they have mission, vision, and values, and it's just another thing that helps with securing fit, no fit
Yeah.
for if they're up for a brand because they've already done that hard work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's hard work.
Oh yeah. And and you can do that for them if they don't have it, like the mission, vision, values kind of stuff. I'm fascinated with this idea of corporations and corporations as an entity, and the word corporation is related to the word body. And I've been at a number of companies, and there's always what I call the smile and the guts. There's like the outside, like shiny smile, and then there's the inside kind of the grind and the messiness, and incentives get involved, and emotions get involved, and it's amazing how the work continues to get done despite it being done by imperfect humans that we are. So we've talked about the CEO, but talk about the culture side of things. Like when is it ideal? What's the sort of culture you're looking for? And when do you have to say, no, you actually need to maybe do some culture work here before we can get to brand? Or is there a way to move forward kind of without that?
Yeah, it's there. It's there. I don't really say culture, no culture. There is a culture, it's like I always say, you have a brand, whether you know it or not, you have it. You work on it or you pay attention to it or you don't. The culture's there. It's just, what are we pulling through? What is like a pattern within the culture that we can help highlight or shine a light on to help them stand out, the organization stand out or appear or just match their outside perception again. That the inside marketing team, they're doing so many things. They can't work on all that. It's a lot. It requires, you have to have downtime. You have to have time to be able to think. You got to go out and do research. You got to look, because we do look at competitors as well. It's more today with digital, it's more about just clutter in the market, honestly. Then you got to look at your competition, but it's clutter, it's confusion. We're trying to be all things. We're chasing shiny objects, which we don't need to. If you have a solid brand, you can say no to things as easy as you can say yes, because it's clear. You know exactly what you stand for. You know exactly, your brand guidelines give you all of that framework. So you don't have to chase things. Oh, I think I should be doing this, or I think I should add this, or it gives your team and even leadership. Our favorite CEO, we have a couple now, but our favorite CEO, he was the brand ambassador. Yeah, hey, that's not used correctly. We don't do that with the logo. I don't know what you think about clutter and branding. What do you think about it? Like, is that part of anyone's your conversations you're having with people? Is it might not be in your
I mean, you're the expert. I would say just in the physical world, I believe that there is if you're trying to build a robust organization or corporation, let's say, there are two ways to do it. Of course, you build muscle, and I think strengthening your message, strengthening what you stand for, and having your yes, like this is our strength. This is, you mentioned planting the flag, and there's a phrase that I've heard about branding where it's planting the flag sort of on the mountaintop as your, like, what's the path to your position of advantage, so the flag points you to the place where you can say, come with us because we help you win. And so it ultimately becomes like this promise that you're giving to customers that are seeing you and they're looking up at you and they're saying, oh yeah, I can I can see the advantage of that, and I can see the path forward to working with you. So that's great. But then in life, there's always the reduction, and there's always, I think, an importance to consider essentialism, sort of that concept of
Mhm.
less
Yeah.
but better.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you know, to be rudimentary, you can take this sort of a brand perspective, but to continue the topic of just, a corporation as a body of people, if you're trying to get a six pack of abs, let's say, the quote in the gym is, well, abs are made in the kitchen, actually. So, you can
True.
work your abs out, but at some point you're going to have to like figure out the caloric intake. And so I think there's a direct parallel with brand. And I think that's why the
Yeah.
simple brands, that's why Apple,
Mhm.
that's why some of the copywriters that we saw in the 60s and 70s that were so, I mean, Volkswagen is a great example.
Mhm.
But there were others where it's like this French cuisine sauce, this reduction that is so powerful, but it's not reduced
Mhm.
beyond what's critical
Mhm.
to the overall culture or the message or the dish that
Mhm.
you're trying to serve. So I don't know where that
Yep.
takes you from a brand perspective, but that's where my mind goes.
That's good. It's not reduced beyond recognition. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So
Hmm.
I think I want to throw one other thing about brand today in there that I didn't earlier is that with our talent shortage in everywhere, but in healthcare specifically, um, having a solid brand online, digital presence, in trying to attract talent or getting a talent to understand your culture, what you stand for, it's so important. I mean, uh, besides taking a position and saying what's different about you as far as the clients go and who you serve better, from a talent standpoint, it's also equally as important to have that message and that culture out there so that, because no matter what, if they don't like you, follow you, or any of that, they're looking at you if they're considering your organization to hire or to work for or to engage with. They're
Hmm.
looking at all things that are linked to your brand, all things. So having a strong, putting that stake in the ground and having a strong brand position and really highlighting or featuring your culture in the digital world is so important. It's so
Yeah.
important today.
And in part for recruiting is what you're
Hmm.
saying, in part to
Hmm. Yeah.
attract and also
Hmm.
keep talent, but to
Hmm.
really
Right.
quickly communicate
Right.
what you're about in the market to people
Hmm.
who are looking.
Yeah.
So whether it's for maybe that result or another, is there a story, like, is there a success story you can tell us about maybe a client that sort of like brings us into the real world of like the work you did
Mhm.
and sort of their
Yeah.
reaction to it, or some outputs?
So, uh, as far as positioning goes, we have worked with a behavioral health center in Ohio that had three different names. Like it had three different bolted on names. We went through and then the board kind of gets fed up at some point and says, I think you need to work on this. So internal team worked on it, did their best, very best. And then they decided to engage with an outside firm. And we were in the mix, in the hunt for that work, and they chose us. And we went through a process of really looking at, what was going on within their organization, where they wanted to go. And this is a $10 million smaller firm, but still solid. They do domestic violence, substance use, mental health. They do therapy, counseling. They do residential. They have all the continuum there. Um, but they're out in rural Ohio. You don't need to come to the city to get this work done. You really don't. But nobody knew, right? Because they had this hodgepodge of names. They have a domestic violence shelter there that's amazing for full families. They have a whole process and protocol around keeping you safe. And so we looked at all of that and we renamed them 180 because of where it's helping you change direction. No,
Hmm.
helping you change direction. We're not going to say we're going to completely change you, but it's giving you the tools, the support, the guidance to position you for success as a productive citizen, right? And a
Yeah.
healthy, productive citizen. So we worked with a few board members. We came up with the name. We did a rebrand with the board and key staff as well. And a lot of things we talked about were aspirational. I want to have a women's home right here. And I don't want it to be like an old clunky one. I want it to be a lovely one, even if it's in suburbia or out in the out in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of that went into the consideration. Now they have a really strong website. We redid the website, worked with a firm on the outside. We work with firms to build websites on strategy, on brand, help with the content. And now we do, because they don't have like lots of money to throw in advertising every month, right? And is their audience even looking at, how are we going to get to them? So they do a really rich, robust newsletter. They named it, we branded it. We do interviews with key influencers, like their talent within the organization, to highlight their talent. We post that all over the place. It links, always goes back to their website, and we're tracking all kinds of numbers. Who's calling, what kind of response we get on everything, and we link everything to social, and we share everything. And we've been working on this for 24 months with them. Really conservative but smart spend on their behalf that's built into their budget. That we work with their marketing department, which is one person, and she's overworked. She loves working with us because we can support her and give her lots of things to think about. Because if she has to brainstorm something, she calls up. We meet with them weekly. We have a whole meeting cadence with our full team, 30 minutes. We have a working session like once a week, so that we can kind of help keep everything moving. That's what I find, that once you launch it into their world, is try to get approval or guidance, like it gets lost in all their work. And so we have a regular meeting so that if they didn't get to it, we just talk about it at the next meeting. Fine. You know what I mean? So I've kind of tried to figure out how to work with firms that are overworked, if you will. Yeah. And I know it seems like crazy, but when I first started my business, I worked for an agency, and they kept all the creatives in the back. We weren't allowed to speak to clients, see clients, engage with clients, nothing. And I thought, I want to work with clients. If I ever get my own agency, all the creatives are going to meet with the clients right off the bat. Why are we not bringing creatives to the table? And I realized this was a long time ago. It might be different in agency world today, but back then we were not engaged. We were creating things with a little project brief or a creative brief, no interaction with anyone. And our creatives are on the kickoff call. They're part of every conversation every week. They ask questions, they contribute. We work together. I believe that in that rub, in that consternation of, trying to figure things out, the best work comes. Best work comes in the collaboration, because clients know way more than you do. Even though you think you know more than them, you don't. They know way more than you do. You just have to bring it through. They don't have the ability to bring it through. I love that part of our job. That's my favorite.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's curious why creatives were kept in the back room. Creatives are sort of the heart, like they're the intuitive sort of soul and heart. And then you have the, way back in the day, you had like the madmen, the business sided, the pitch people, and that's all about sort of head and business savvy. And so the collaboration, to break down that wall and to have the client speaking from their experience, and then to have the creatives in the room along with a diverse group around the table. I agree, that's the way to tap into people's perspective. And it's simple logic, which is look at a problem from as many angles as you can while you can early, as Seth Godin, I think, says, thrash it early. Let's look at this thing and break it down as quickly as we can, rather than at the 11th hour having somebody sweep in and say, oh, well, you didn't ask for my opinion, but and then you're 2 steps back.
Quick story about how I started doing assessments. I learned it I learned it from some seminar I went on, all the different things I had to do. And I would go and do all that work. 8 weeks we'd work on it, right? And then I'd come back and present. They had no idea they even hired us, and they didn't know why they hired us. They didn't know actually what we were doing. So I learned that the hard way. I would get this job and I'd be so happy, do all the work, do all the interviewing, get it all on paper, synthesize it up, get key recommendations ready, go set that meeting, go tell them about it. And they're like, oh, we even forgot we hired you. Like I could barely keep them on subject. I could barely even keep them engaged because they had so checked out of the whole project,
Yeah.
But now we do it differently. We meet weekly, and I know that everybody's kind of might be doing other work on some of these calls, but it's just when we're all together, we can tackle a situation. Like if I can't get a hold of somebody, they can help me get a hold of somebody. And I can have that conversation the next week, or if it takes me that long to tell my client. But I mean, things just happen in real time, if you will, and it's way more efficient and way more collaborative, which is the best. So don't do what I did back in the day. It was
disappear, come back weeks later for the big, you throw back the curtain. They're like, oh,
yeah,
who are you?
Yeah. Wait. Forgot that was
signed off on this work, and you're all ready to go.
Yeah.
And there's something about that too, like having the creative process open behind the curtain, and just we don't need this big ta-da moment, as fun as that feels, to whip the sheet off of the display board and blow their minds with some creative that you've worked on. It's far better to, I think, have this kind of iterative approach with them, and you're learning as you're going and tweaking as you're going. The world's just too fractured lately, to wait 6 to 8 weeks for the big reveal, when you can just be working on it together. Yeah.
And that's on the assessment piece. So if we want to talk a brand, like get to the logo, if they need a logo. So once we're done with the assessment, they're like, okay, where's my logo? Okay, you said we need a name. Where's my name? They want that. Right?
Oh yeah.
So, it's funny. And then if you think about it, we have because of online now, we do a lot of work online. We closed our office in Cleveland when COVID hit. We have working sessions with our team. We have cadence of meetings to keep things going and keep the work really great, right? So at the beginning, we get a weekly meeting that's set, because I know everybody's schedule. If I willy-nilly it and so we set those meetings in advance, like right when we sign a contract. We get that for one-on-ones. I have one-on-ones with the key CEO, and then I also have team meetings with marketing, so I can make sure I'm doing what the CEO wants, as well as, because I didn't used to do those back in the day, but now we do both. We have our working sessions, and I have one-offs with the CEO to make sure that I'm not missing anything, because managing expectations in creative work is like the hardest part, because creative, we're making something. We're not pulling that book off of a shelf and handing it to you and saying it's $5.99.
Yeah.
We are making something for you. Chad and I always talk about it. Like, he's our creative director. He said, we make things every single day, like nothing is the same. Yeah, we can use a bit of this presentation for that, but we literally are creating. We've been doing it our whole career.
Yeah, that's the word.
Sell it,
creating
and then
new
we
things.
create it. Yeah. So
substantially different than anything else that's been out there.
Yeah. So for logo, we have a whole logo process we refined that really breaks it down. We're not just, showing them finished logos, which really pulls them through the process really well and engages them. Like, instead, we used to go off and do design and then come back with that big reveal. And it's like, no, they gotta participate. We don't get to walk in their living rooms and see what kind of design they like. So how are we gonna see what they like without, do they like geometric? Do they like, natural kind of shapes? Do they like chunky type? Do they like blue? So we do this whole process with even naming. We do a process for naming, and we do a process for logo design, and we can pull through that process like all the different things we need to in order to create what we need.
Hmm.
So it's really, really fun.
And a certain percentage of that work is simply, what do they like? What's going to resonate with them, and who are they? Like, what resonates with
Mm-hmm.
who they are, and trying to pull that out. And then,
Oh
of
yeah,
course,
yeah.
applying kind of best practice. What, is this a modern font, or is this a traditional
Mm-hmm.
brand? Or, I mean, all sorts of considerations that way too. Yeah.
We're rebranding a treatment center right now in Texas, and um, yeah, it has the word horse in there, but we're not going to use horses for. I mean, we can't show all horses. I know horse is obvious, right? But so we explored, because we knew the position, we knew what kind of tone the facility
Yeah.
was, we knew
Mm-hmm.
who the clinical directors are. They're highbrow, they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so we brought some of that elegance and luxury through, and it didn't have a horse. But we have, as professionals, we have to do all that study and kind of like walk them through and share that with them,
Mm-hmm.
So that gives us an understanding of what's going to really work for them.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, CEO get behind it 100% and love it, really.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's a big ask, but yeah.
Yeah. So without being on the nose, like, or so literal, you can bring in sort of the essence of a horse's spirit or their motion or something like that.
Yeah.
Like there's lots of things you can do other than, hey, here's a picture of a horse with your horse brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, before we wrap, like zooming out to sort of, because you've been doing this a while, so and you've been niched down into mental health and behavioral health for a while. Step into sort of the macro view real quick and just give us like an insight on how things have maybe changed in the last 5 or 10 years. Like what are the waves that you're seeing of change happening in the industry?
So 5-10 years. So the past 3, I mean, since COVID, it's way different. Not way different, actually. Post-COVID, during COVID. So a lot of our smaller community mental health centers had not propped up some things once they were getting paid for telehealth, right? They hadn't done the digital work. They were too focused on doing clinical work. And so they had to prop up quickly. They had to get a digital footprint instantly. So we helped them with that, which means strong social, not just, all the events. Like, what do you actually do? How do you have a, look professionally social on social, but also have real content on social, like blogging your subject matter experts, talking about, some key initiatives you're doing, who's doing what, board level, state level, how can we communicate some of that? So we a lot of, but the addiction treatment side, they already they live and breathe digital, so they didn't need any work there. So my behavioral health centers really needed a lot of work. So it was me organizing so they could afford it, and then what do they actually need, organizing it so to focus on what do they need. They need a referral source communication. They need a corporate communication consistently out of key constituents all the time. They need their social. So we kind of bolted those things together into different ways based on what people could put in their budget. You know what I mean? That's 3 blogs from subject matter experts, 20 social posts, this and that. We use like Airtable as our what do we call it? We use Airtable to control all of our content. We put it all in there. We have this tool that we work with them. They can actually get in the tool and work on it. So digital tools, and our clients, they embraced it. So that's what we research them. We have Miro boards we use with our clients now. So getting them to be able to get on camera every week and work in a digital platform. Like if they had to get an Airtable, if they had to, add a Post-it note to Miro, like those are some things. And if they didn't want to do it, we do it for them. But get them to be able to see things and understand what's possible,
Yeah.
you know. I don't know if that's the answer to that question, but I'm thinking there's probably a better one. I don't know.
I think that's a great answer. Yeah, I think it's a great answer. And it shows how you're guiding your client through sort of the change, the
Yeah.
meeting them where they are with their digital sort of expertise or lack of expertise in some instances, and helping them adapt the right
Mhm.
tools that they can actually
Mhm.
use. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a good answer. I think it's a great answer. Well, Kelly, thanks for
Thanks.
being on the Boost.
Thanks,
It's
Steve.
wonderful to see
That was
you.
fun.
I'll see you in September in person. You're going to
Yeah.
be presenting more about
Yeah.
brand and starting at the top with your
Mhm.
brand for the
Yeah.
Mental Health Marketing Conference. And
I can't
stoked
wait.
to see you there.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be
It really
fun.
is. I
Yeah,
can't wait for you to meet John too. He's awesome. You're going to love him.
I can't wait to. Yeah. Well, stare at the lake this weekend, reset,
I
get
will.
some,
I am.
get some zen in your life before
Thanks,
Monday.
Steve.
Yeah.
All
And thanks
right.
for being on the Boost.
Thank you.
All right. Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.